They thought it was the trip of a lifetime. After a sun-kissed wedding in Charleston, South Carolina, Jessica Monroe and Daniel Hayes flew down to the Florida Keys, chasing turquoise waters, soft sand, and promises of forever. For the first few days, it was paradise. Sunset walks along Duval Street, fresh oysters and champagne on the pier, laughter spilling into the night like they were the only two people in the world. But within days, paradise became a prison. Hotel staff whispered of shouting behind closed doors. Locals reported seeing the couple followed by a shadowy figure. And then silence. All that remained was a wedding ring, found half buried in the sand and stained with blood. A honeymoon had turned into a manhunt, and the truth waiting to surface would force everyone to question love, loyalty, and survival itself. Stay until the end, because the twist in this story will change everything you thought you knew. But what really happened on that honeymoon? Did Jessica vanish into the night, leaving behind nothing but her ring? Or did Daniel disappear first, swallowed by secrets he had been hiding for years? Some claimed it was a crime of passion, others believed it was a deadly setup, staged with precision. And the most unsettling question of all, who was hunting whom? Police reports hinted at conflicting timelines. Witnesses swore they saw Jessica alive days after she was said to be missing. Others claimed Daniel was spotted alone, driving south toward Miami, his hands trembling on the wheel. Every detail contradicted the next. And as investigators pulled the threads, one chilling truth became clear. In this story, love and lies were tangled beyond recognition. Because when the person you trust most becomes the prime suspect, who do you believe? Who do you protect? And who do you fear? Stay with me. The deeper we go, the darker the answers become. Before the chaos of the honeymoon, there was only love. Jessica Monroe grew up in Savannah, Georgia, a small-town dreamer with a heart wide open to the world. She was the kind of woman who believed in handwritten notes, Sunday church bells, and the kind of love stories you only read about in novels. Friends called her trusting, sometimes too trusting, but she never saw that as a weakness. To Jessica, faith in others was proof of her own strength. Daniel Hayes was the opposite. Raised in Atlanta, he was charming, ambitious, and never afraid to bend the rules to get what he wanted. His friends described him as magnetic, the man who could walk into any room and have every eye drawn to him. But behind that easy smile was a ledger of debts, favors owed, and secrets he never spoke of. When their paths crossed at a wedding in Charleston, it felt like fate. The Southern gentleman with big city ambition and the romantic who believed in forever. Their connection was instant. Their courtship was fast. And within a year, they were standing at the altar, promising a life of devotion. In the beginning, it was flawless. Sunlit photos on Instagram, road trips with laughter spilling out of the car windows, long captions about finding a soulmate. Jessica filled her journal with plans for their future. A house with a white porch, 2 kids, holidays surrounded by family. Daniel promised her the world, and for a while, it seemed like he could deliver it. But under the glow of that perfect picture, shadows were forming. Late-night text messages that Daniel quickly deleted. Phone calls that ended as soon as Jessica entered the room. A hushed argument overheard by her sister, words too muffled to fully understand. Except for one chilling phrase, she can't ever find out. Jessica's parents, though polite, worried about how quickly things had moved. Her father pulled her aside on the night before the wedding, asking if she was absolutely certain. Her mother admitted she couldn't quite read Daniel's smile. But Jessica, blinded by love, waved away their doubts. And then there was the voicemail. A recording Jessica accidentally stumbled upon while scrolling through Daniel's phone. A woman's voice, low and urgent, saying, "You're in too deep, and you know what you promised me." Jessica never confronted him about it. Instead, she tucked it away in the back of her mind, choosing hope over suspicion. After all, hadn't Daniel given her everything she'd ever dreamed of? Their wedding day was a scene out of a storybook. Charleston's historic charm, oak trees draped in Spanish moss, her veil catching the golden light. Guests toasted, cameras flashed, and the couple shared their first dance under a canopy of stars. But even that night, as Jessica leaned her head on Daniel's shoulder and whispered about their future, he stared past her, eyes clouded with something no one else could see. The stage was set, a hopeful bride, a charismatic groom, and a love story painted in gold. But hidden between the lines were cracks, cracks that would split wide open once the honeymoon began. Because sometimes, the most beautiful love stories are built on the darkest foundations. The honeymoon began with the promise of paradise. White sand beaches, the hum of steel drums in the distance, warm nights filled with salt air and laughter. For Jessica, it was everything she had ever imagined. But almost immediately, cracks began to show. Locals offered warm smiles, but behind their kindness came hushed warnings. "Don't wander too far after dark," one shopkeeper whispered. Another muttered about certain neighborhoods where tourists were said to disappear. Jessica brushed it off as superstition. Daniel, however, grew tense, dismissive, insisting they stay close to the hotel. As the days unfolded, the couple's picture-perfect romance began to fray. Arguments flared over the smallest things: where to eat, how much money Daniel was spending, why his phone was always face down on the table. Jessica's journal entries shifted from hopeful to uncertain. She wrote of feeling watched, even when she was alone on the balcony. And then came the stranger. A man, tall, with dark eyes that seemed to linger too long. Jessica noticed him first at a seaside cafe, staring from across the street. Later, he appeared again, this time at dinner, seated alone at a table near theirs, his gaze fixed not on the menu, but on them. When she whispered her fears to Daniel, he laughed it off, saying she was imagining things. Yet when the man stood to leave, Daniel's eyes followed him with a flash of recognition he quickly tried to hide. Tension climbed with each passing day. Their voices grew louder behind closed doors. Guests in neighboring rooms would later recall muffled shouting, Jessica's voice breaking into tears, Daniel's tone sharp, commanding. Then came the night everything unraveled. It began with a scream, sharp, desperate, and echoing through the hotel's marble corridors. Guests rushed into the hallways, some peering over railings, others calling down to the front desk. Within minutes, security was pounding on the couple's door. Inside, the room was a chaos frozen in time. The balcony doors swung open to the humid night air, curtains billowing. A glass lay shattered on the floor. And Jessica was gone. Her suitcase remained untouched. Her clothes still hung neatly in the wardrobe. On the nightstand sat her passport, her phone, even her wedding ring, as if she had been erased in an instant. Daniel, pale and frantic, told security she had simply vanished. He claimed he had stepped into the shower, only to emerge to silence. He insisted she must have wandered off, but staff found no sign of her leaving the hotel, no footage of her passing through the lobby, no witnesses who had seen her outside. When police arrived, his story began to unravel further. His explanations shifted. First, he said she went for a walk. Then, that she was upset and needed space. But the evidence in the room, the screams, the shattered glass, the belongings left behind, suggested anything but a voluntary disappearance. And yet, there was nobody, no trail, just a missing bride on what was meant to be the happiest week of her life. By morning, the island was buzzing with rumors. Some whispered it was a crime of passion, others that Jessica had uncovered a secret too dangerous to ignore. Hotel staff whispered about the mysterious stranger who had been seen watching them at dinner. Locals swore they had warned the couple, but their warnings had gone unheeded. The police pressed Daniel for answers. He maintained his innocence, clinging to the same refrain. She just vanished. But investigators discovered something he never expected, and that discovery would change the course of the entire case. And if you followed this story this far, then you're part of the mystery now. Drop a comment saying, "I'm still here." Let's see who's really paying attention, because what comes next will test everything you think you know about love and loyalty. The morning after Jessica's disappearance, the resort awoke not to the sound of crashing waves, but to chaos. Police cars lined the beachfront entrance. Reporters, tipped off within hours, swarmed the lobby. Guests whispered in the hallways, clutching their children closer, some even cutting their vacations short. And at the center of it all was Daniel, the husband who should have been broken, frantic, desperate. Instead, he appeared composed, almost rehearsed. Cameras captured him sitting stiffly in the hotel's lounge, eyes hollow yet dry, answering questions with short, careful phrases. "I just want her found," he told reporters. But to many, his tone felt wrong. Too calm, too controlled. Locals were divided. Some defended him, insisting he looked traumatized, too numb to grieve openly. Others whispered that no husband could lose his bride overnight and remain so still. For the police, his behavior was a red flag. Within hours, the theories began. Some guests swore Jessica had been kidnapped. Others claimed they saw her leaving with a man who didn't match her husband's description. And then, as if to fan the flames of suspicion, a rumor spread across the island. Someone had seen Jessica at the airport that very morning, boarding a flight under a different name. The police followed every lead. They interviewed taxi drivers, scoured ferry records, checked airport surveillance. Nothing matched. The supposed sighting evaporated like smoke. But then came the first piece of physical intrigue. Hotel staff reported a discovery. A note slipped under the couple's door sometime during the night. Written in jagged, rushed handwriting, it read only 4 words: "Don't trust him." The words sent a ripple through the investigation. Who left it? A stranger who knew something? A cruel prank? Or Jessica herself, trying to send a final message before she vanished? Detectives pressed Daniel harder. Why had his story shifted? Why were his timelines inconsistent? He claimed stress clouded his memory, but suspicion grew. When asked about the mysterious man seen watching them at dinner, Daniel denied knowing him, yet his body language betrayed something. His jaw tightened. His eyes flicked downward, avoiding the camera. Meanwhile, the media painted its own narrative. Headlines screamed across American news outlets. Asterisk, honeymoon horror in the Bahamas. Asterisk, talk shows dissected every angle. Guests debated whether Jessica had been murdered, abducted, or if, as some tabloids claimed, she had staged her own disappearance to escape a troubled marriage. Still, the police pushed forward. They dredged the shoreline. Divers searched the reefs. Cadaver dogs combed the palm groves inland. But Jessica remained a ghost. And yet, strange things continued to happen. Hotel staff reported late-night phone calls made from the couple's room. Calls Daniel swore he hadn't placed. A housekeeper found a woman's sandal near the service entrance, but security footage showed nothing. And then came the most chilling moment. A voicemail left on Jessica's mother's phone back in Ohio, time-stamped after her disappearance. A woman's breath, shallow, and a single word, whispered, "Help." Was it real? A cruel hoax? Or Jessica reaching out from the shadows? The investigation seemed to chase its own tail, each lead ending in smoke. But detectives weren't done with Daniel. They tore into his finances, his past, his digital life. And what they discovered was darker than anyone had imagined. But before that revelation, one haunting question lingered over the island. Was Jessica alive, or was the truth buried somewhere no one had dared to look? For weeks, investigators chased shadows. But then, a breakthrough. Deep in the hotel's lost and found, hidden beneath a pile of unclaimed belongings, they discovered Jessica's phone. The device was water-damaged, but not beyond repair. Forensic experts pulled the data, and what they found flipped the case upside down. Her GPS logs revealed a series of late-night pings, not in her room, not on the beach, but near a remote cliffside on the far end of the island. The coordinates aligned with text messages she had received from an unknown number days before she vanished. Messages that read, "We need to talk, and meet me where we first said." Who was she meeting? And why keep it secret from her husband? At the same time, detectives digging into Daniel's digital footprint uncovered something even more disturbing. Weeks before the honeymoon, his search history revealed a chilling pattern. How to disappear without a trace. How long until a body is found at sea? Can police track deleted messages? When confronted, Daniel brushed it off as morbid curiosity. But investigators weren't buying it. Then came the financial bombshell. A life insurance policy, purchased just 3 months before the wedding, naming Daniel as the sole beneficiary. The payout? $500,000. To prosecutors, it looked like a motive written in ink. The case turned from a mystery into a courtroom spectacle. Inside a packed Bahamian courthouse, prosecutors painted Daniel as a cunning manipulator, a man who lured his bride to paradise only to profit from her death. The defense countered, asterisk, there's nobody. No proof of murder. Just suspicion and coincidence. Asterisk. Jessica's parents wept openly as photographs of the couple's wedding flashed across courtroom screens, contrasted with the evidence, the texts, the insurance papers, the eerie search history. Daniel sat stone-faced, his expression betraying nothing. Jurors leaned in. The world held its breath. It seemed the case was all but sealed. But then, the story fractured. Because just as the prosecution rested its case, new evidence surfaced. Evidence that suggested Jessica herself may not have been the innocent victim everyone believed. Her phone logs, re-examined, showed more than GPS pings. They revealed outgoing messages. Messages she had sent in the weeks leading up to the honeymoon, to someone the police had never identified. The tone of the texts was urgent, intimate, almost conspiratorial. He suspects nothing. Once it's done, we'll be free. Free from what? Free with whom? The revelation sent shockwaves through the courtroom. The narrative of a grieving bride and a predatory husband no longer seemed so simple. Had Jessica been planning something of her own? Was Daniel not the hunter, but the hunted? The prosecution faltered. The defense seized the moment. And then, in a twist that no one, not the jury, not the public, not even the investigators, saw coming, the case took a turn that rewrote everything we thought we knew about love, betrayal, and survival. Because the next piece of evidence would shatter the story forever. And just when it seemed the story had reached its tragic conclusion, everything changed. Because Jessica Monroe, the bride the world believed had vanished without a trace, walked back into the spotlight. Alive, she appeared not in chains, not in fear, but on her own terms. Calm, composed, and very much in control. The headlines that had once screamed "missing wife presumed dead" now burned with a new truth. She staged it all. Jessica confessed to authorities that she had orchestrated her disappearance. But her reason was not what anyone expected. According to her, Daniel wasn't the only one with secrets. She had begun to suspect him months before the wedding. The odd phone calls, the money that never added up, the way his smile sometimes faltered when he thought no one was watching. She had stumbled across the life insurance papers herself, tucked into his desk drawer. She knew then that she had to test him, to see just how far his betrayal would go. So she crafted a plan. The text messages, the GPS pings, the sudden vanishing act, all of it was designed to lure Daniel into exposing himself. And when he did, when he sat there, calm in front of cameras, explaining how his wife had just vanished, she claimed her suspicions were confirmed. But here's the question that haunted investigators, the press, and millions of people following the case. Was Jessica truly a victim defending herself from a predator? Or was she the predator all along, manipulating not just her husband, but everyone around her? The reunion between Daniel and Jessica was nothing like the vows they once exchanged. It wasn't tender, it wasn't filled with relief. It was electric with rage and betrayal. He accused her of destroying his life, of making him a villain in front of the world. She accused him of planning her murder, of turning their love into a transaction. No jury could settle a question this tangled. No verdict could capture the truth. Because maybe Daniel was guilty of plotting against her. Maybe Jessica was guilty of deception that went too far. Or maybe, just maybe, they were both right. And both wrong. When love turns into survival, how far would you go to protect yourself? Would you gamble with your partner's life? Would you fake your own death? Would you hunt the person who once swore to love you forever? Jessica and Daniel's story doesn't end with handcuffs or a prison cell. It ends with two people staring across a chasm of betrayal so deep that neither could ever climb out. A honeymoon that became a hunt. A love that became a battlefield. And the truth, the full truth, may never be known. In the end, love didn't die on that honeymoon, but innocence did. What began as a promise of forever unraveled into suspicion, betrayal, and survival. Two people who once stood hand in hand at the altar now stood as adversaries, each convinced the other was the real deceiver. So I'll ask you this, what do you believe? Was justice truly served here? Or was it just another deception in a love story gone dark? Imagine yourself in Jessica's place. Would you have trusted your partner despite the whispers, the secrets, the evidence piling up? Or would you have run, vanishing before they had the chance to betray you first? And what about Daniel? Was he truly a predator? Or was he caught in the perfect trap set by the very woman who vowed to love him? The line between love and fear is razor thin, and their story proves just how quickly devotion can transform into danger. I want to hear from you. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Tell me whose side you're on and why. Are you with Jessica or Daniel? Or do you think both were guilty in their own way? And if you thought this story was wild, wait until you hear about the bride who never returned from Paris. A case where love, betrayal, and disappearance reached even darker depths. So make sure you subscribe now, because every single day, we bring you stories where passion collides with mystery, and where love is never as simple as it seems. This is just the beginning. The next story may change the way you think about trust forever.